Welcome everyone. We have a huge audience today. I think that speaks to the topic that we are talking about. And we got some really great stuff for you all. So we're talking about chapter engagement, trends for 2017, things we're seeing in the market that we want to share with you to hopefully solve some of your challenges. Before we get started, let's do the regular rigmarole here. If everyone could just type in to the chat or the question box, make sure that A, can you see my screen, and B, can you hear me clearly? Y for yes, N for no. Can everyone hear me? Can everybody see the screen? Because if you can see me, then that's super creepy, and I would question how you're doing that, but hopefully you can see the screen. All right, Justin, Brian, Jill, Trina, Karen, Patrick, RJ. Awesome. So we got a bunch of people in here today. Everyone is saying that we're good to rock and roll. I hope everyone enjoyed a little bit of music to start off today. My personal favorite, Lucas Graham. Talking and getting us all pumped up. As you guys can tell, I'm pretty excited. I probably had a little bit too much coffee, but I don't know what that threshold is anymore. All right, so we're talking about chapter engagement today. And there was a quote that we extrapolated if you didn't get to take part in last week's webinar where we interviewed Gary LeBranch, the CEO at an awesome association, ACG. And he said a chapter in isolation is much less likely to appreciate the value of being part of the system. So I think all of us here can agree that we have issues with our challenges, we should say, in operating with our chapters or our sections or state associations. Whatever that structure is for you. So when I say chapter today, that's what I mean. If I say CRP, that's who you are, a component relations professional. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, okay? All right, so just a really quick introduction because I see some new faces in here, which we're really excited about. So I always like to talk to you about why are we qualified to talk about this stuff. My name is Kyle Bazzi, as I said, the Director of Growth here at Bell Highway, a proud Detroiter where we are headquartered with 70 other awesome roadsters, as we call them here at Bell Highway. And Bell Highway is, we've been working with chapter-based nonprofits for 17 years now. So we have over 4,000 chapters that we have worked with, all with the national kind of structure in mind. So we have a wealth of knowledge that we're excited to share with you guys. All right, so usually I ask you guys some questions and I ask you to type into the chat. Today, here's what I want you to do. I'm not asking for that necessarily. If you want to share it with us, fantastic. We'd love to learn. But I want you to take out a piece of paper or a sticky note or open your OneNote or Evernote on your computer. And I want you to ask yourself these two questions today, okay? We're really concentrating on getting these webinars to be actionable for you. So not just information or education, that's great too, but we want action. So I want you to come back to me in 3 months and say you deployed one of these 5 tactics that we're talking about today for chapter engagement, okay? So first off, I want you to ask yourself, as we're talking about chapter leadership today and engaging our chapters to produce the results that we want, whether that's increased ROI or better retention or more impact to the mission. Why are your chapter leaders? Why do they get involved with chapters? If you want to share in the chat box, please do. We'd love to learn, but write it down for yourself. And if the answer is, gosh, I don't know, or if you're guessing because you haven't asked the question, I would make it a point to next week ask your chapter leaders this question. Why do they volunteer? If they're paid staff at maybe a bigger local or a state association, why do they like working there, or why did they choose to work there? Okay? Why are they chapter leaders? We need to know what motivates them to get involved before we talk about engaging them for the results that you want at national. Okay? So why are they chapter leaders? I'm giving you a second to write this down because I really want you to do it. You're going to get so much more out of today because we're going to tie this to the different engagement tactics that we're talking through. And then second is, here's what we're concentrating on today. How do we solve your biggest challenges with one of today's chapter engagement tactics, okay? So Justin, Brian, Jill, Trina, Karen, Patrick, John, Bill, Tracy, Stacy, all of you that have already typed into the chat box, I want you to concentrate on that today, okay? And I want you to hold me accountable for finding something that solves one of your problems. All right. So we're structuring this a little bit different. Today we're going to show an example, and then we're going to talk about that example. All right. So number one, and you can write 5 bullet points because we're sharing 5 tactics today. There's more than 5, but I want to keep this meaty, so I want you guys to really dive in with me today. And we could do more in a later webinar. So number one, create a professional development program. All right. So what does that mean? So last week we learned from Gary, and we asked and we surveyed our audience, and there were not a lot of associations that were doing this for the chapter leaders. But ACG, the Association for Corporate Growth, created a professional development fund. So do you today have a professional development fund? Most of the answers we get are, hey Kyle, we have some type of training or some type of development internally at maybe our annual conference. And that's great. So I don't think we're saying these are mutually exclusive. But again, going back to that question, why are chapter leaders involved with the chapter in an organization? And if we created a professional development fund, what would that look like for them, right? That national could give out scholarships for them to maybe get their CAE. Maybe that's one of it. Maybe it's a more vertical specific certification in the advertising industry or the PR industry. Where is their career going, and how can you make it a huge incentive to be part of a chapter and volunteer? And then the cream of the cream kind of rises to the top because they know there's opportunities for them from national with this professional development fund. All right. So it supports and encourages chapter staff education and continued professional development. Okay. So that comes in a lot of different forms, folks, and depending on your industry and maybe what the costs of certifications are, or the education or seminars that your chapter leaders would love to take because they were paid for. All right. But this also shows that National is saying we care about your continued education and professional development. And what ACG did is they set up the program, and my team's going to drop the link in the chat box for you. So check that out because there's a resource page for it, so you can get a good example. And what their HQ, which ACG is global, so it's their global office. What their global office did was match chapter investments towards professional development. So your chapters could come up with X amount of dollars for this annual scholarship, and then the national office or the global office would match that amount. Okay, so it really encouraged the chapters to show what's important, to show that their people are extremely important. And they use this for the CAE exam. All right, that made sense for ACG. You gotta find out what makes sense for you too. So just some bullet points as you guys are writing that down, and maybe you clicked on the link that we just put into the chat box so you can check out ACG's professional development program. So what is it? It's the process of improving and increasing staff capabilities through education and training opportunities internally and externally. All right. So if this is an idea you want to bring to your whoever your team leader is or your senior leadership, some of this on this slide will help you do that. It helps build and maintain morale and attract higher quality staff volunteers. That's important. You're building in an incentive program that inherently attracts better talent to run your chapters. How many of you are sitting there saying, yeah, that's part of my issue, that we can't attract and maintain really good people to volunteer. So the people that we get, we love that they want to give time, but their aptitude for what we need done, maybe they don't have a lot of experience. Okay? So how to get started? First and foremost, I think this goes for everything we're talking about today, is make it a priority. If your challenge is attracting great talent, this is a really good way to do that at your chapters. Get chapter leaders involved by creating a working group. All right, let's find out, that question we asked earlier, what do they care about, okay? Set a communication cadence, meet face-to-face, so plan a session at your annual conference, okay? So continue to do that, but include all chapter leaders for networking, not just training, to kind of roll this kind of program out. And then ask for their feedback. What do they want to learn? Don't roll out a professional development program based off what you think is important at HQ. What do your chapter leaders think are important, okay? So everybody pause real quick, and I want you to grab your mouse and type into the chat real quick, do you have a professional development program And if you don't, okay, rather than say, no, we don't, just let me know, is this something that would solve a major problem for you? Attracting better talent to the local associations, whether that's staff at a big state association that you oversee, or is that at your chapters that it's mainly your chapters or volunteers. John, what's up, man? It's great to see you back. He said yes, and yes if they would participate. Why don't they participate, in your opinion, John? Claudia, no, but we are planning to develop a chapter leadership webinar online conference. Great idea, Claudia. Make sure you ask for that feedback from your chapter leaders so you can follow up and say, you can show me the survey, Claudia, that says your chapter leaders have found an immense amount of value out of that kind of training. Okay? And remember, we're not talking about just training for what your organization does. This should benefit them professionally. All right? Now, sure, those can go hand in hand, but you've got to make sure it's benefiting them professionally, because now there's this huge incentive to be part of the organization and to do the things that you need done. And in turn, you're, the CRP, going to have better relations with your chapter leaders. All right, Cindy said, we do not, but I think it would also help develop future leaders for our national organization. Heck yes, Cindy, I totally agree. Justin, we have an annual leadership conference, all paid for, week-long event with speakers on leadership strategies and the ability to meet with peers from around the world. So here's oftentimes what I see is you're seeing chapter leaders not participate in what you're doing. I would first look at yourself as an organization at HQ, not necessarily you as an individual, and say, why are they not doing that? And ask that question, okay? That's really important. All right, jumping on to number 2. I got some more questions and comments coming in that we'll definitely get to by the end of the webinar so we can keep talking. All right, good. This is great. A bunch of people are responding. That means we're getting some value out of this, and we're getting some things done. All right, number 2 out of 5. Create an awards and incentive program for your chapters and your chapter leaders. The Military Officers Association of America, MOA, their chapter recruiting and awards incentives is the example we wanted to share today. So there is an incentive built in to be a great chapter. So we're talking about chapter engagement. So $10 for each new initiative, or I'm sorry, incentive, qualified chapter membership. All right. And so what they built, and my team is again going to drop the link so you can go check this out on MOA. They set this up really well. They set up a program where there is a desired behavior that they want their chapters to do. All right. If there's a desired behavior you want your chapters to do that's impactful for what you're trying to accomplish, whether that's statistically relevant with financials, or it's like reporting, I want you to do yourself a favor and look to yourself. If you incentivize them to do so, you will get a higher percentage of people getting it done. All right. It sounds simple, but the question I would ask you is, why aren't you doing that? Okay. So this chapter recruiting and awards incentives. Now you're also promoting a aspiration. You want to, people want to compete. We're human beings, they compete. They want to be the best chapter, all right? So what MOA did was $250 retention incentive was awarded to chapters that retain 95% or more of their membership. I have seen a lot of associations' retention numbers. There are not many that are in the 90%, okay? And I've seen very few that are above 95%. Let me know if you are above 95%, because that is extremely impressive. And I think that we should be learning from you on your thoughts on why that is. But they give a $250 retention incentive. So if your chapters are saying, hey, HQ, our budgets are tight, yet the retention's low, how about offering incentives at the end of the year for people that retained 95% or more of their membership? MOA also offers a $500 award for chapters that recruit the most new incentive qualified chapter members, and that goes back to what we outlined here on the left, awarded in 10 categories based on chapter size. Okay, so we're probably getting a little detailed here on the program, so go check it out, grab that link. Okay, and those are a couple of ways. Again, if your problem is retention, if you're below 90% retention, I'm going to share something with you. You have a retention problem, okay? If you look at the analytics around renewing membership type organizations or subscription type organizations, you need a high retention number to sustainably grow over time. So if you're under 90%, that's a big problem. So you could keep growing really fast, but now you're trying to replace a bigger amount of members every year that you're losing. So we got to get above 90%. And here was just another incentive that they gave out was $100 is awarded quarterly to the top recruiting non-affiliated chapter. MOA does this really well, and if you click on that link, you'll see more details on how they do it, and it really is pretty special. Well, we're going a little bit too fast. Don't read that one. All right, so let's talk about this real quick as you click the MOA's link and you guys learn. So how to get started is, first and foremost on this one, again, let's keep it in the broader context of engaging chapters, is how to get started with the awards and incentives is determine what your goals are. And your goals obviously can be a great opportunity that you see, or what are some of your biggest challenges, right? So again, if retention is a big challenge, and let us know if it is, check this program out, okay? There's other examples we can share with you too if you reach out to us and just let us know that retention is an issue. So decide how you will measure the achievement of goals. That's really important. What gets measured gets done. Peter Drucker. If you don't measure it and follow up on it, then you don't know if this program's working. Now, the flip side of that is if you measure it and you can show the value, you have a story to go tell to your senior leadership team to get more investment for the things that you want to get done. All right? Determine a budget. Determine your awards and what will motivate chapters. This one's so important. Highlight it, underline it, write it down. Determine your awards by what will motivate chapters. How do you figure out what will motivate chapters? You ask. Is it money? Is it gift cards? Is it recognition at an annual conference? And it doesn't have to be just one or the other. And then find the appropriate avenues to promote the program and keep this one simple. Don't try to start with what MOA did. Start with one of them. Start offering X amount of dollars or this recognition at this conference for the groups that did X, Y, and Z, okay? If you can move the needle that way, we can always add to the program. You don't got to start coming out of the gate, too big. And when you do this, test it out in a small group, okay? So work with a working group or a pilot group and say, hey, here's the program we developed. There's a lot more we can do, so keep that in mind, folks. But what do our chapter leaders, what do you guys think of this program, and would it motivate you? Honestly, would it truly motivate you to do, to work and find a way to get retention above 90%, if that's your issue? All right, before I go forward, any questions on that one? Anything you guys want to add? We got some really great conversations going here. John, I'll get back to you, so I'm not sure I make them easy to participate in. Great, John. Let's unpack that a little bit. We'll go back to that point at the end of the webinar. Brian said we have the same type of program Justin described, plus we do have 8 regional chapter office programs. Great, Brian. That was the #1 point. I see what you're saying there. John, you are around 90%. Yeah, I would love to figure out what you guys are doing for that. That's really great. But yeah, you're right. So John brought up, hey, I'm above 90% retention, but maybe we would want to do something for growth or membership growth. 100%. Absolutely, John. Whatever your biggest challenge or opportunity is, that's where you want to focus it on. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to go on to #3. #3 out of #5 today. Online community for chapters. How many of you guys have an online community for chapters? Not for members, for chapter leaders. So the example is Higher Logic chapter communities. We've actually talked to Higher Logic about this quite a bit. I will tell you why. We're agnostic to the association market, so I want to just say that. But I also like to recognize who we believe are the leaders for certain functionality, and we believe Higher Logic is an incredible platform if you're looking to create chapter communities. So here's an example, the Society of Mechanical Engineers, SME, use the Higher Logic platform to support their chapters with consistent branding. Okay? How many of you guys have issues with consistent branding? We see that a lot across you guys' types of organizations. So success might be 50 branded chapter websites created and 100 events posted in their centralized calendaring system within the first 6 months. How is this accomplished, right? This is accomplished because the community software for the chapters allows you to engage with your leaders solve problems for them, and effectively communicate, all right? If you're sending an email and you're saying nothing's getting done, but I told them, you're communicating, but you're not effectively communicating. And a community can do that because it's a two-way street of communication where you're able to engage with your chapter leaders, educate them, and do a lot of really cool things. All right, so we're going to go on here. So the online community for chapters, let's kind of unpack this a little bit from the example. So what is it? It's a place for a group of people with common interests to interact, share, and collaborate with each other without being face-to-face. I'm about to share a really awesome resource online that is not Higher Logic, it's actually something else for you to learn on. So when I pull it up, my team will share that link. So how to get started, evaluate the need for an online community. Survey, look at other examples. You want to know the feedback from the chapter leaders on would this be effective. Don't move forward if chapters are like, we're not going to use that, we're not going to engage, with that. But if they're saying we'd love a forum to have templates, we'd love a forum to for chapters to share, different resources with each other. Okay, so now you're creating all these synergistic run-ins with your chapter leaders. So the ones that are doing events really well can share it with the ones that perhaps need help with events. So it's not even just a one-to-one, but you at HQ facilitated it. All right. Investigate your options and what a community has to offer, weigh the pros and cons, and talk to others who are doing it. So we're going to drop this link, My Community Manager, into the chat. So grab that real quick. It's going to provide tips and tricks to get started. There is, and my marketing team, as you guys are listening, make sure that if that's not the forum, I think it is, but if that's not the forum, also drop the forum in there for our CRPs here today so they can engage with other people that are running communities in the association world. This is such a cool one. This has been a trend for a while, and we're seeing a lot of people double down on it in the association space. And there's a reason for that, because it's working. But it's not just for membership, folks. This is an incredible way, done correctly, to engage effectively with your chapter leaders as well. Okay? So I saw a bunch of people are clicking the link, so I'm going to let you guys check that out for a couple seconds while I answer some of your questions. So let's go. Let's see, Cindy, we are working on getting ours up and running. It's through your membership. And YM's got a good one too, Cindy, so I'm glad to hear that. There are good ones out there, folks. We just see Higher Logic as the leader, and they really work to educate. So I don't mean to poo-poo anyone else's, because if you have a really good one, let us know what that is, because maybe we haven't heard about it, and it's something else we should share as well, okay? So don't just agree with me if you don't agree with me. Cindy, great stuff. It's always good to see you here every week, by the way. And then Kelsey said, we have an online community via Higher Logic for our states and chapters. We launched an all-member last year, and it has been great. The state and chapter leaders community just launched this month. Kelsey, if with your permission, I would love to just check in with you once a month to learn how the chapter leaders community is going, and do's and don'ts. I will share something with you, Kelsey, and with the group here. We've learned from some of the associations that if you don't have somebody at headquarters managing it, meaning you're making sure content's getting answered every day or engaged with every day, if a chapter leader posts something, someone has to always follow up, okay? And the quicker you follow up, the more value that person is going to perceive it as. So that is one thing we saw where someone had a really great chapter leader community. The person running at HQ left, and senior leadership decided not to replace that person. And then that community went into the tank, okay? So just a little bit of advice. I'm sure you guys are doing it great, but that's just a bit of advice that maybe you would like us to help you tell your senior leadership because they're not listening. But Kelsey, we'd love to learn from you. That's so cool that you're doing that. And we'd love to also learn if you like Higher Logic so we can share it with the group. John, yes, but no one uses it. I'd like to use something different, but there is a budget cost to that I can't overcome yet. What about using a LinkedIn group or Facebook until we can get something more robust like Higher Logic? John, you're the man. That is exactly what we would suggest. It's actually something that we've done here at Bill Highway, is we weren't ready to pay for Higher Logic yet because we didn't know if it would work. So we started a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group. what I would do is survey your chapter leaders, ask questions first and foremost around what kind of value do they want to get out of it, and then secondly, here's a couple of options that we have that we're going to invest our time into, and if it works, maybe we can pay for something better later. But would you guys want to do it on LinkedIn or Facebook? The one really cool thing about LinkedIn is you can also attract and other talent, or maybe people that are thinking about being a chapter leader, whereas Facebook's a little more closed. But Facebook's got a lot of really heavy users that are there every day, so there's pros and cons to both. John, awesome point, man. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, Claudia, we're looking at our blog and our website for the chapter leadership. That's great. Yeah, communities are really big, Claudia. Amanda, we've had an online community for years. We're just looking for relaunching and giving chapters their own communities. So Amanda, I'm guessing your communities are for members right now. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what your team thinks about the chapter communities, and if you guys think those can be successful. Awesome. Kelsey said, thanks, yes, Higher Logic has been great to work with, and they have many resources and tips to utilize. So there's a nice little user referral for Higher Logic as well. All right, it looks like everyone's back on the webinar and off of the link, so let's go ahead and dive into number 4. First off, do you guys get as excited about this stuff as I do? I love learning all this and seeing you guys in action. All right, number 4, create a best-in-breed experience. So we got a couple examples here. AMA, the challenge was they didn't have a system to track event speakers. Okay, and so instead of building instead of building, they initiated a partnership with Ortate to grow their base. Okay, so here's what we mean by this, and what I want you guys to get from it is if there are important events or important activities, I should say, that you are looking to your chapters to execute. Obviously, local events is a very big one. Maybe it is promoting certifications or certain education courses on your learning management system. The examples are pretty boundless, but let's just extrapolate the events real quick. So if events are extremely important, creating a best-in-breed experience is all about the top and bottom 10%, as we call it. Who are your top 10% performers when it comes to events? Who has figured out how to send a really good marketing email or series of emails, and they've learned exactly what days to spread the emails out on to attract the most members or even non-members to the event? Who has sold the best sponsorships at these events? Who has created the greatest experience for your members around these events? Why don't we take that top 10%, quote unquote, let's take those examples and let's share them across the organization, okay? So again, we're talking about engaging chapter leaders, but why not say, Stacy from New Jersey ran this event, and here's 3 things she did that we see or we believe are reasons that she is so good at events, okay? So if you're not, or you want to learn from Stacy. Sharing that kind of stuff across the organization, National can facilitate those conversations, and that is extremely important. You can create a wiki. You know what a wiki is. A wiki is it's a directory, so to speak, online where you are sharing, these best-of-breed kind of tactics that you've seen, and you are consolidating and curating them for your other chapters. So another example is the National Association of Realtors. So their challenge was increasing consumer outreach. So they established a national partnership with the Boys and Girls Club of America. There's another way of doing this too, of let's say sponsorships. And we've seen some organizations that said, hey, we want to help all of our chapters with sponsorships. So we're going to either forge relationships, with them or on their behalf, or we're going to show them what a good sponsorship template looks like. We're going to give them a PowerPoint deck or a PDF for collateral to go and pitch sponsors. And we're going to create leads for our chapters to go after. Okay, that's the kind of best-in-breed experience that National can engage in with their chapter leaders. So going to the next slide, what is creating a best-in-breed experience? So what is it? So it's a way to leverage solutions and programs that already exist, so you don't have to create them from scratch and avoid the pitfalls of not being an expert in everything. I am going to guess you have some very passionate volunteers that lack the marketing skills that would help create, a greater number of membership or better retention and ROI, but they are very passionate. So let's go and give them the tools. Let's not, let's not put the onus on them just to figure that stuff out. Now they got to want to learn it. You can't make somebody want to learn, but you can provide them with the best possible tools. So how to get started in the best of breed? Talk to your chapters and figure out what they are struggling with when it comes to this kind of stuff. Align challenges with your biggest membership engagement issue. If it's a big issue, all parties, senior leadership, your chapters are going to be more willing to find a way to solve it, okay? So we talked about surveying your top 10% of high-performing chapters as it relates to events, all right? And if you don't have that data, find it out, okay? Try to figure out what that looks like. And then find out what marketing collateral they use for events and when they send their material, what day of the week, what time, how far in advance, where do they post events, do they use email to communicate, do your top 10% all use social media, what are the things that they're doing that others aren't? That is a good indication of why they're being successful with that activity. Okay? Awesome. All right, so we're going to drop those links from the previous slide. There's some ACG blogs that were some good illustrative examples on this. So definitely check those out, and you'll see some more resources that are in those blogs as well. All right, I promised you 5. We are giving you 5. Peer-to-peer mentoring. I really like this one, and we're seeing this as a trend across the industry right now. So yes, there are a lot of programs that do exist in certain ways, but when I say peer-to-peer mentoring, I'm not talking about membership. Remember, we're talking about chapter engagement today. We're talking about connecting your chapter leaders with each other and recognizing newcomers as volunteers and recognizing people that have been volunteering for a long time, and they are the model chapter leader that you wish everybody was, okay? So GBTA, one of my favorite people in this world, Patrick, at the Global Business Travel Association, he kicked off this initiative created by chapter presidents, all right? So he engaged with his chapter presidents. Patrick is really, really good at working with his chapter presidents and oftentimes working for his chapter presidents. He established KPIs to self-measure and share the results with the entire group, showing that it's working, and the intent is to match underperforming chapters with high-performing chapters. So let's think about the best of breed, the number 4 that tactic that we mentioned today. And now let's take it a step further with peer-to-peer. So let's say you recognize someone that's great at events and another group or chapter that is not. How can we find a way to connect them in a way where it's known that, hey, this is a peer-to-peer mentoring program for you guys to help each other and learn from each other. And there's a big challenge that you're doing really well, chapter in New Jersey, that maybe the chapter in Dallas would really benefit from learning what you're doing, okay? This also fosters those synergies, again, of value that they have now as local leaders. Why? Because they're networking with other professionals, which is a big reason they're involved. And then another one is they're learning, right? Help them learn. Help me help you, Jerry. All right, so peer-to-peer, number 5, let's walk through this. So what is it? It is keeping your chapter leaders connected. And think about it, it's allowing them to share what works and what doesn't work and learn from that, giving them a forum to do so. Again, HQ is at the core of it, facilitating all of this. And it's an incredible way to improve chapter relations and improve chapter engagement with the stuff that you want to roll out. This is a big problem, okay, and I want to take a step back real quick, that exists when it comes to these kinds of things, is you can't Google what other chapters are doing in your org. Think about that. It's not readily available information that say, hey, I want to go check out what Dallas is doing. Now, we do see really great chapter leaders reach out to other chapters on their own, okay? But why make them do that? And if they're doing it, it's probably a very, very small percentage that we want to encourage the broader group to do it. And if they are an underperforming chapter, there's a good chance that they haven't done it, right? Because if they did, then we would hope that they would have found something by now. So let's evaluate. So how to get started. Evaluate and rate/rank your chapters. Focus on those that are struggling. If you help the ones that are struggling and find a way to make them successful, and you start with prioritizing the biggest challenges across the board as told by your chapters, you will improve relationships in this civil war of national headquarters and your chapter or local-based associations. Pair them with a chapter leader of high-performing chapter. We talked about that. And here's a little bit of a tip that we highly recommend. Have them put a meeting on the calendar for regular check-ins. Why is this important? Because how many of you woke up today, forgot you had a webinar with me, and if it wasn't on the calendar, you wouldn't have joined, right? And so you forget about it if you put it out in the future, but at least it's on the calendar, so you'll be reminded, and then that will actually happen. All right, that is 5 out of 5. We have another 5 that we can do in another webinar if you guys found value out of this today. So please type into the chat, say, hey Kyle, we'd love to learn more. Or hey Kyle, this was okay today. I will not be offended if you tell me this was okay. We want to figure out how to improve it, so let us know that too, okay? All right, so some ground rules to conclude today and kind of wrap up. Investing, if you have listened to me before, you know how important this is. Investing in your chapters ultimately invests directly into your members, okay? At the end of the day, we're all here to achieve a mission. And whatever that is for the impact that your association is making, when you invest in the chapters, you ultimately reach more people, you invest directly into these members, and you add value to the world. You add value to your membership. We got to get away from looking at chapters like cost centers and understand that the way they're being operated is why we think of them as cost centers. How can we look at them as assets and then invest into our assets? So number one ground rule is nurture all-star chapter leaders. All chapter leaders are not created the same. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir right now. But if you know what your all-stars look like, create a profile around that, okay? So as you're recruiting or helping your chapters recruit volunteers, give them a profile of what you have seen as an all-star chapter leader. Connect chapters to one another. That's a ground rule. I think that we talked about that across a few of them today and gave you a couple different tactics that you can try to deploy. And then make sure that everybody involved has a sharp focus on their goals, on your goals, on their goals. Make sure there's a sharp focus in the group, and then follow up to let them know how it's going. If you roll out a peer-to-peer mentoring program for your chapter leaders, and you improved 3 chapters, event registration numbers by 20%, or the revenue they're getting in from sponsorship by $7 grand, share that with the group. More people will get involved once they see it working, okay? So that kind of, those results can be self-fulfilling. If there are no results, that's what you're going to continue to get if you're not measuring them. If you share the results, everyone will start saying like, you know, wow, this is really working. And if it's not working, then at least you can come back to the drawing board and try to draw something up again. And that is number 4, is reevaluate if the program is working. If you roll something out, okay, and a couple of people said this in the webinar today, if you roll something out with the best of intentions and it doesn't work, it doesn't mean the idea didn't work, okay? We just got to come back to the drawing board and figure out why, you know, if the chapter leader said they wanted this, what am I missing, okay? And it's easy to get frustrated in that, but try not to. Kind of remove the emotion out of that and look at it very objectively and figure out and keep asking yourself the question, why isn't this working? Keep asking your chapter leaders, why isn't this working? Why aren't you guys participating? And they will tell you those answers, okay? So reevaluate that program if it's not working. All right, everybody, we are continuing the Fact Finders in 2017. Kyle, what is the Fact Finders? Well, I'm glad you asked. It is you bringing us challenges And my marketing team has a lot of fun with this, and we go out into the world and we find answers. We've built this incredibly big Dropbox series of folders where we're just saving all of these resources to tackle what you guys have told us as your biggest challenges. And then you fill out this form, and we're going to deliver something back to you. It's free. There's zero obligation. It's because we want to help, okay? So don't feel like we're trying to sell you something. We won't even talk about Build Highway. And not once has Build Highway been the answer, okay? So let us know your challenges if you're struggling to find resources and answers. So maybe you have a project on your plate that you want us to help with. Maybe it was one of the things today. Hey guys, could you share more about the peer-to-peer mentoring programs? Could you connect us with Patrick at GBTA? Could you do X, Y, Z? Your success, and I want you to know this, is tied on how well you ask questions. So your questions that you're asking will determine your success as a CRP. All right, and then what's the business case? So trying to make a business case, but need some external supporting resources. So maybe you're going down the path of creating a community for chapter leaders, and you just want to know what else is out there. You want to get references for Higher Logic or Socius or the Year membership platform. Let us know. We have a wealth of people that are be happy to help you. And then are there other resources that you're looking for that research to guide your project? So maybe you're in the problem research phase, not the solution research phase. Let us know. Fill it out. My team's dropping the link, buildhighway.co/ASSN-fact-finders. So a little bit of a mouthful. So we'll make it easy on you, and we will drop you that link. And then if you want to see any of the archives that we've created in 2016, and this is our second one for 2017, please visit our knowledge bank on buildhighway.com. All of our webinars are archived there and recorded, as well as you'll see a little link for the presentation. We also share other webinars from around the association world and white papers and things like that that haven't been created by Build Highway. So we're trying to create this, this directory for you guys to solve the problems you're looking to solve, okay? All right, that is it for today, at least with the content. I'm going to get to some questions, so if you are, if your head is filled with everything you came here to get, we're not going to be going anything new, perhaps, but we're going to be going through some Q&A. So feel free to ask questions, or if you want us to share other resources, anything like that, okay? Thanks for joining. We'll be sharing our next webinar next week with you guys pretty soon. Happy to have you all here today. All right. Amanda, put us in the Higher Logic Camp 2. We love them. Claudia, check out my plan. This is listed. Hey, Claudia, I actually have that open on my computer right now. My marketing team sent it to me, so I will be reading this very soon. Thanks for sending that over. Claudia built, Claudia, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have it in front of me. It's like a chapter to-do plan, right, for your chapters, or a playbook almost that you created for them. This speaks directly to me. Do more. Thanks, Claudia. We're always happy to have you here. Wesley, this was very helpful for me. Awesome, Wesley. We really appreciate you coming, man. Let us know what else, other topics we can tackle for you. Cindy, I am biting off more than I can chew, but I definitely would love the next 5. Awesome, Cindy. I will let my marketing team know you said that, because I want to do the next 5 too. I'll be reaching out soon. Got some answers from our board recently, and I'm excited to get started. Awesome, Cindy. That's great news. I know you were like overwhelmed with the amount of work that you're doing right now, so that's great to hear that you got a path forward. John, love the ability to learn and be reinforced on the things I'm trying to do. Time, money, and volume of projects is always a challenge, so determining what's first is difficult, and these sessions help prioritizing them to some extent. Yeah, John, that is always tough, and I think you guys are given an unfair role and then not followed up with the appropriate amount of resources all the time. And so that is a challenge, and that's across the board. But you being here shows something, right? Like you actually care and that you're trying to make it better. So I would say that they are lucky to have you in that sense. So don't give up, man. Just keep rocking. One thing I would say, John, is tying all of your results to your senior leadership strategic objectives. We did a case study with Dresden Farden from COSIN, and she kind of shared how she got additional investment from senior leadership by solving those goals. Claudia, yes, plan to get chapters more standardized this year. Awesome. John, have you started your LinkedIn group yet? Yes, we have, John. It is private, though. Would you like to get in? Because I'm looking for more early adopters to figure out what CRPs would want from a community. So we're actually creating a community for you. We haven't announced that publicly yet, though. So let me know if you would like to be involved in that, John. Cindy, these sessions are an amazing resource. Thank you. Cindy, I'm asking you a favor in front of everyone here. We're relaunching our website to better serve you guys this year. Would you please be a testimonial for us? Because you say very kind things to us, and we would love to show that real people get value out of this. It's not us just putting stock photos of someone on our website with a blurb. We'd love to get a testimonial from you. John, awesome. So John, I'll email you probably next week because I'm going to be in DC for the day tomorrow visiting some associations. Next week I will get you over some information so you can see what I'm trying to do with it, and I'm actually going to send you a survey to learn what you would want from a community and how we could best structure it so it's not like overwhelming and a chore for you, but it's there when you need it, and it's got the appropriate amount of touch points for you. So thank you for wanting to get involved. I'll send a survey next week and get you in there. Awesome. Thanks, Cindy. Oh, great. John talking to RJ later today. Yeah, so I'll have RJ kind of share some information on that as well. RJ, for everyone that doesn't know, RJ Carr is our CRP advocate. That's how much we want to help you guys. When we started doing these webinars about 5 months ago, we found so much value in them for you guys that we hired somebody, and his title is CRP advocate. Like, he literally just interviews you, or interviews people like you, so we can figure out how to help you better. And RJ is an incredible guy. Awesome. Well, that's going to wrap it up today as the questions are slowing down. If there's anything else, let us know. If not, we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Until then, keep the fight up. Take the world by storm, as Lucas Graham says. And we will talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.